there's a storm coming and it's filled with a lot of lightning and a lot of light, and you cannot hide, you cannot run or hide from this. Enough is enough already. Has the light already won? And are these biblical times ahead? Does that even seem like? What does that even look like? And when we talk about the light, what are we talking about? Like a light bulb? Are we talking about the stars in the sky? Are we talking about the solar flares from the sun? Are we talking about the coronal mass ejections from the sun? What exactly are we talking about when we talk about the light has already won? So when we talk about the light, we are talking about waves of white light first washing over the planet. And I don't know if you guys remember this 9 years ago, but we were like, oh my gosh, look at that white line on the Schumann resonance. This is just amazing. And fast forward to now, 9 years down the road, and we have like blocks of white light shooting down on the Schumann resonance. And what is the difference between then and now? From energetically, from what I pick up on, it's not just a washing over of the planet. It's a thick white light that's built up and is now here encroaching on the planet. And I think that this is another reason why we see the chemtrails picking up. We see the vaccinations picking up. We see the WHO picking up the pace to implement what they want to do. And then we have digital ID and then digital currency. And once we have digital currency, if you don't take a vaccine, right, then you will have possibly your bank account frozen. Who knows what will happen? Things are picking up speed because the light is picking up speed. And the light picking up speed is also picked up by those who are trying to control the masses here on Earth. And so when you're spraying the skies for a very long period of time, that is going to affect the ozone. It's going to affect the soil. It's going to affect the land. It's going to affect our water sources. It's going to affect everyone and everything. So when they say climate change narrative, okay, I see it as a narrative now. I see it as they create the problem and here's the solution, everybody. So you just come along with us, and then once we go into digital ID and digital currency and we're in a system and we have facial recognition and we have 15-minute cities and there's cameras everywhere and they know your every move and they know when you're going and traveling into certain countries. You may have your allotment of meat, you may have your allotment of travel, your allotment of clothing purchases. Everything can be controlled when we go digital. So the important thing is to be aware and educated, number one, as to what's going on. And the next things that I'm seeing, at least in the country of Canada, is there's an area in British Columbia where they are enforcing all people with wood stoves to register them with the government, so that, because it's a carbon footprint, even though I think for me, if somebody has a wood stove, that might be their only source of heating. That might be the only way they can live. And the amount of carbon that emits is so minuscule in comparison to these wealthy billionaire jets flitting across the skies all the time, right? So I see it as a very big time narrative. So now, once you've registered your wood stove, then you're only allowed to use your wood stove outside of, you can't use it for more than 15 minutes. If you do, you're going to get a $500 fine in between the months of May to September. So if you want to use your wood stove in between May and September, it can't be longer than 15 minutes. Otherwise, you get a $500 fine if they catch you. And I just don't see how these kinds of things, I think it's testing the waters to see who's compliant. It's all about compliance. And if we learned anything about compliance back in 2020, when we saw 80% of the world head in for a shot, then we would know and think to ourselves, yeah, okay. So there has to be some realistic expectations of people, and I don't see this being realistic at all. Next thing that's happening, of course, is the MAID program kicking up back into effect in 2027 in Canada, where they're going to allow children to come into the hospital and say, I'm depressed. I'd like to use the MAID program and end my life. And you don't need a parent's sign off on that. So they can just do whatever they want. There are a lot of things that are taking place and encroachments in the US. You guys are seeing it in California and you're seeing it in New York. We just signed a bill C5 in Canada, which really just allows the Liberal government to have complete decision-making powers. I think that bill will just really, for me, signals we're no longer a socialist country. I think we're moving into communism. In Canada, I feel like we are moving in a direction along with Australia, New Zealand, UK, Spain. Maybe not Spain as much, but it's right around the corner when we look at France. And I see it as managed decline. So if anybody wants to look that up on YouTube, just type in managed decline and it'll be right there for you to watch it. It's the same thing that happened during the days of the Roman era. How did the Roman era fall apart? They let in a lot of people from elsewhere that were able to do the job for a lot less money. And then the locals pretty much closed up shop and left because they couldn't afford to live in those cities anymore. And then the whole thing came crumbling down. However, the ones in charge at the top, they were all okay. They're going to be just fine. It's just the people beneath them. But the difference is back then, you could go traveling anywhere you wanted. Was there a border? You could go anywhere you wanted. I'm sure maybe they upheld some parts of any kind of a border, but I think it was a lot easier to just move about. Whereas now, if you're going to go moving about, you better be prepared because people are holding their borders a lot more intensively. When we see biblical times ahead, I don't know what anyone else thinks about. Eric's coming in like he's dressed like the Pope. That's hilarious. He's just doing this to me straight-faced. Oh my God. Okay, so Erik is a soul that I love to tap into. He helps out with my spirit guides. He's amazing. And he's super funny too. So when you have biblical times, I don't know what that signals to you guys, but when I see all the people walking the streets in France and the UK and they're holding a candle and they're doing groupings gathering and they are gathering with candles and they're praying to Jesus, I would say that we're probably moving in that direction. Because when things seem so dire and so lost, that's who you're going to pray to, right? So what would you like to say about biblical times, Erik? He literally is like, no, 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 no. Obviously, he's trying to lighten the mood as we're talking about these topics, which is fantastic. And it's just a reminder that the souls that are here, the energies that are here are on our side, okay? They're here to help us. So if we got any problems, you better call on your team to help you and back you. And I would do it because they never sleep, they don't take any time off, and they are omnipresent. So they can help you with anything, anytime, anywhere. So ask away. All right. He says he knew that would crack me up. Biblical times ahead? He says already are. Already are. He says it's going to intensify as we move forward with many countries that are succumbing to unrealistic control and regulations and rules and poor patterns of behavior from the people who are running these countries. And he puts it in quotations. So you're putting it in quotations because they're just the puppets. There are actual elites above them that are actually running the show and making decision making on our behalf. More neurotic behavior. If things don't turn around soon, there is going to be basically massive upheavals against the governing bodies, in which they're likely to call in the military. Similar or like in the USA, but for actual real purposes rather than people that are paid off to act up. On the lighter side, he says, what he wants to talk about next is when we talk about biblical times, he wants to talk about what's happening on the other side in spirit to inform us, to bring us hope and encouragement of what is coming next. Okay. So when we ask the question, has the light already won? And the answer is yes. And he's showing me visually the same thing my own guardian angel showed me. We were projected to go down a path where people were going to be a lot less awakened, okay? But the internet, social media platforms, AI, Chat GPT is all helping us. So it's educating us and getting us to wake up and use it in ways to help each other and help ourselves. And so it's going to be what he's saying and what I've heard before is a narrow miss. A narrow miss on what? The original path projected, which would have enslaved us for a lot longer on Earth. Diminishing our numbers to make it an easier amount of people to control on the planet. So he's saying the same thing that I've seen online, which is we have 7 billion on the planet. And I've actually heard this. These elites are aiming to narrow us down to 500 million because then it's just an easier number to control and to handle on the planet. And Erik is also saying 500 million. The goal and the role of the light is to help us move past and through this, keeping our numbers high, keeping our information out there without it being labeled misinformation or having rulings put in place where now your freedom of speech is regulated and you potentially could go to jail for years. He wants to talk about how there was a comedian who was making jokes and now he's going to, I think it's 7 years he's going to spend in jail. And then there was another gentleman who was in a group chat where they were talking about certain topics they didn't like. And now he's going to spend a year in jail because he was in that group chat. So is there anything else that you want to make mention of? He just wants to talk about all the beings of light and love that are here encompassing the planet, helping us free ourselves, and that they are here stabilizing the vibrational frequency on Earth so that it's almost like stabilizing us so that we don't lose hope, don't completely go off the deep end, I guess, is what you're saying? Yes, okay. He's like, educate us, inform us as to what's best to do next. So the light is operating through each of us, through our channels of communication, which are our chakras. And so some of us are very clairvoyant, some are very clairaudient, some of us are very clairsentient, feeling, and some of us are very claircognizant. Most of the population, from what I've seen, are very claircognizant. They have ideas, information, knowing, sentences, and clairsentient, feeling, gut feeling. And so with this being said, he wants us to know that with this light encompassing the earth now and encroaching, our chakra centers are going to continue to open further and get really blasted open. So then it's going to allow a lot more light frequency to permeate our vessels and our mind, which will guide us and steer us in directions that will be very helpful, not only for us, but also for humanity. And he's using the example of 9 years ago when Spirit came to me, my guardian angels came to me and said, what do you think about channeling us for people? And I said, oh my gosh, so, and the very next day after I agreed, they said, what do you think about going on YouTube? And I was like, here we go. So here's a way where I was steered and guided by the light in order to help humanity, right? Or help other people. And this can be in the smallest of ways, and it can be in the largest of ways. It all depends on what they feel or deem warranted for each person. So we knew that Kristin was willing to step off and go forward in this direction, whereas someone else, they would know that that person wouldn't pay attention or listen to them and wouldn't step forward. Erik's like, we were listening to her. She kept saying, I'm ready for this. She knew something big was coming. And then when she was informed of what it was, she was like, surprised. I was surprised. So don't worry about what's coming, because what they're telling us is that the light is going to guide us very directly as our chakras open, as we get a lot more light frequency pummeling us. Okay. And the flip side of having our chakras opened is not only having a lot more of their energy funnel through us to guide us and steer us and communicate with us, but we're also going to be able to pick up on and sense and feel the intentions of other people. So if other people think that they can lie to your face or get away with what they once got away with, they're not going to be able to. And then the last thing is being able to communicate with spirit. So some of us are really going to pick up, and our abilities, our clairs, are going to be even more intensified. The last thing he wants to make mention of is, you're all doing a wonderful job here. And he's just doing this like Donald Trump did, and just to keep pushing through, keep fighting the good fight, and never give up. And always remember that even when a door closes, even when you think this is the end, even when there is no hope, there is always another path opening before you. There is always another way. The light never gives up. It's like a stream going through a river. It just goes around the boulders. It never says, oh, there's a boulder, we're going to stop here, we can't go any further. So remember that. The light never stops. It's always fluid. It always knows where to go next. And he wants us to be reminded that we are this light. So we cannot be stopped. And then now he's reminding me of a conversation I had with Jesus. And I said to Jesus, did you know, like, they've been chemtrailing us for this long, and that they've been polluting the planet on purpose to depopulate and to take away our resources? So, and with this amount of aluminum and other toxins in the air, like early onset dementia is a factor, and other ailments that are coming on, cancers are at an all-time high. The food colorings they're putting in our food products, etc. And Jesus just kind of smiled at me and he says, they've been trying to do this for generations. They've been trying to, what? I got to put this on YouTube. So basically they've been trying to do this for generations. And look how well they've gotten. Because now we're at the highest number of people on the earth, on the globe. The other thing I'm getting is there are individuals who have held their positions at the top for generations, okay? So they've played the system for generations, and they've taught their kids how to do it, and the next generation and the next generation. Some people would call that Illuminati, some people would call it something else. But the ones that are kind of they're not at the top, they're kind of down here. They're still above it all. They're still purchasing up a lot of the properties. They're still in what we say at the power seat. But they're getting really nervous because there's going to be a digital system that does facial recognition, and there will be cameras everywhere in every city, and everywhere you travel, you will be tracked. And so now they're nervous because this is going to be implemented. So some of them are stepping forward in order to help awaken the masses, because it's the only way to protect themselves. If the masses awaken, then maybe this path will stop and they'll keep having their autonomy to keep acting up and behaving this way for their generations to come. So even the individuals who have always been on top, they're not at the highest levels, but they're here. They're getting very nervous now. the tide is changing and it's moving in a new direction now. As soon as these puppets were installed to run these countries, we knew that the second phase or the second act would take place, which means I'm getting Jesus here telling me this. So as soon as this was all installed here on Earth, the light said, okay, we're going to move around the boulders, right? Because the light never stops. And it started moving in a new direction, securing humanity's future for generations to come, because there are many other Earths, meaning there's other layers where humanity has been enslaved. Many, many, many of them for generations. And they do not wish this to continue. So they're moving us in a new direction where I see us just sidestepping this path. Even if things completely fall apart at some point down the road and we start from scratch where we're living off the land, that's still better than the path that they have set up before us, where we're stuck in 15-minute cities, we're eating what they want us to eat, which we've seen what that is. Lab-made meat and bugs. Yeah, that'll be a good time. And then universal basic income, it goes tandem with AI. And then they'll maybe move those into green credits, right? Or credit system, so it's not even actually cash anymore. And then those lose value. And they just leave people in these 15-minute cities while they flit around in they'll just use other people outside the system to do their bidding, and they'll just flit around in their PJs. At first when I heard the word PJ, I said, oh, they're pajamas? And then I was like, no, they're private jets. They'll just flit around in their private jets. They'll just use enough people to get by, to have their new world order, okay, rather than ours. What do you see as far as the solar flares, the CMEs, this light encroachment moving forward in the future? Building, growing, encompassing further. You can't escape this. There's no escaping this, okay? Not that you'd want to, but for them, for the ones that are lower in vibrational frequency, they won't be able to escape this. Okay. So how that's going to play out in years to come is going to look like this. They're going to get neutralized. So they won't be able to pull from the dark energy or the heavy energy that they have sold themselves to. The dark energy won't have as much punch to operate here. And then also we have a lot of transmutation, which is suctioning of the heavy frequency into the light. So as this light builds and builds and builds, it'll just start sucking all the heaviness. So all of our problems, all of our own thoughts that billow up around us, which I'll see around people. So that's going to get suctioned. So then I won't be able to worry as much. I won't have as many low vibrational thoughts. And then how that's going to look elsewhere will be anyone who has any attachments, anybody that has any issues, including world leaders that are playing a role in controlling and dissolving countries or management decline. They are going to be unable to, all of a sudden they'll feel like a conscience. They're going to have like, oh, this doesn't feel good. When the light bombards and you don't pay attention or listen, it can feel like one of two ways, or both usually. Your chakra center is closed down. You don't have as much light coming in. So you get a tight feeling in your body that makes you feel very uncomfortable until you listen and pay attention and start moving in a different direction other than the direction that you have been going in. And secondly, when you close down the chakras, what happens to your body? You don't have as much energy. So you're very tired and fatigued. So that's what's going to start happening to these world leaders. It's already happening now, he says. There's a storm coming And it's filled with a lot of lightning and a lot of light. And you cannot hide, you cannot run or hide from this. And it's going to come in bit by bit, gradually over time, so that everyone's accustomed to it until we move in this new direction. And it's not going to back off. It's God's way of coming here to secure our futures in order for us to have a happy, joyous future here on earth. Enough is enough already. You can't run and you can't hide from this. So no matter how much in the depths of despair you are here on earth, remember this. It's just temporary. The light is on its way and encroaching steadfastly. And if you need help with anything, simply call upon this light or Jesus or Erik to help you. They highly recommend that you do, to make life easier, better, and to help sidestep any difficult times ahead. Some of us are going to be asked to step forward and speak up and push through, be a symbol for everyone else. Like if you look at Tommy Robinson in the UK, he's a symbol for everyone else. He sat 7 months in solitary confinement. Why? Because in the prison, 40% of the inmates are Muslim and would have gone after him at any given time. And so they just let him sit there in the jail cell by himself every day for 7 months. Like, what does that do to one's mentality? And why? Because he did a documentary on how the government knew that these Muslim individuals were taking the young women and doing what they wanted with them and using them, grooming them. And so they said, if you put that up online, Tommy, then we're going to put you in jail. And he pinned it right up on top of his X account, which has been viewed many, many times. And everyone knows what's going on. The journalists know what's going on. The government knows. The police know what's going on. There's going to be a transmutation, a neutralization of the puppets acting on the behalf of these individuals. So you're going to have people changing sides. They're going to be coming to the right side or a better side or no side and just educating people. But a lot of these puppets that act on behalf of these people are going to hit or move in a different direction entirely. So that's the other thing I get. So if you ever want to watch that documentary from Tommy Robinson, it's right there at the top of his X account. He's just fist bumping each one of us and he says, keep your chin up, continue being brave, speak up, and don't back down. The light will win this. He says, in truth, the light always wins. However, we're just sidestepping humanity from spending generations held in captivity here on earth because the collective consciousness has asked for this. The earth has asked for this, and we're ready to awaken further. So if we weren't ready to awaken further, then I don't think that they could do this. If you got bombarded with too much light and you weren't ready for it, you would just not be ready for this. So obviously we are ready for this. And obviously each and every single one of us came to Earth to bring our light, to bombard the planet with light, our light, which then allows, what I've heard Spirit tell me, is that we have these new souls coming. And they're saying that they're coming in around 3 to 3.5 years' time that have never incarnated on Earth. And when they bring their light, that's going to bring us up an octave. So then the light will be able to permeate Earth even more so. You see this light, God's light, permeating Earth for the rest of our lifetimes? Yes. Good. We may feel anxious, heart palps at times. We may have a hard time sleeping, overheating, our diet's changing. We might feel as though we feel like we're in the twilight zone, or we're looking at things like it's separate from us, like we're watching a movie. because the light shows you what this really is, which is a temporary seeming reality. It's not as real as you may think it is. So go with the flow. Don't resist. You don't want to resist, okay? You just want to, okay, I know what this is. It's coming in. We got a nice wave coming in. Take some deep breaths. Go for a walk in nature. Go ground yourself. Go get into some water. Go and ground your energy. Lean your back on a tree, because we're going to ramp this up now. I was looking at my popcorn the other night that I was making. It goes in as a kernel, and then it goes around in the heat, and then it pops into a white piece of popcorn. We're all popping off pew, 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 on Earth into awakening. Isn't that just the coolest thing ever? Just a reminder, if you guys feel like you need a reading, I've got my July 4th readings on sale from July 4th until the 13th for 30% off. And you guys can go to KristinDaviesMedium.com. Love you guys.